Welcome to the um, podcast, the Elite Athletes Recruiting Podcast. Today, I have with me Ryan Schummer. Ryan was 2023 catcher, multi-sport guy, and someone that I had the opportunity to work with throughout his recruiting process. And today, we're going to talk about his overall experience and just understanding more about the recruiting process from a student athlete point of view. So Ryan, I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, for sure.
Glad to have you. So you're about at this point where graduation's coming up, right?
Yeah, graduation's Friday, 2 days away.
Graduation's Friday. Congratulations. So, and where did you? Where's the next step for you? What location? What place?
Um, my next step's going to be at Calvin University up in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about just like your recruiting process. I think you and I have been working together about 2.5 years. Is that safe to say, or is it closer to three? Sophomore year?
I want to say it was was it before my sophomore year or was it into my like the winter of my sophomore year or more towards the spring? I can't remember.
I think it was before your sophomore year,
Was it?
wasn't it?
Maybe. Yeah, it might have been.
The years blend together.
Yeah.
so
You start flying by.
so like let's just kind of recap. So yeah, we started connecting about, let's say, sophomore year, say fall of your sophomore year. But as you as an athlete, um when did you start getting serious about recruiting, and when did college baseball become your goal?
I want to say kind of that freshman year during COVID time was the real time when it became real serious for me. Before then, it was like, I don't know, I'd send stuff to like Wake Forest because I was going there for a summer envision camp or something. And that was like the first ever response I got back from a coach was like I want to say like the summer before my freshman year from Coach Walter out there at Wake Forest. And I was like so excited to get a response. And definitely that winter, the winter of my freshman year and going into that spring was when it kind of first kicked in and like really became like a goal of mine.
So about your freshman year, that would be heading into your high school baseball career. Um, and at that point, did you kind of know what you were looking for in a college, or was that something that kind of developed along the way?
I think I kind of had a basis of what I wanted to do, but it definitely developed along the way. I think at that point I had decided that I wanted to be an engineer, but obviously before that in middle school I had bounced around between game designer and everything, and it initially or in the end settled on engineering by far.
Okay. So you kind of figured you were looking for an engineering school. Was there any other kind of particulars that you had in mind? Like, was it location? Because you're a Midwest guy. Did that matter much to you?
Location wasn't a big factor for me. Like obviously it would have been it's nicer to stay close to home, but I was always open to moving wherever the best school for me was. Um the other thing would be like small school versus big school. I come from a very small school. Um I always saw that as kind of like a plus, but if there was a bigger school that was interested, wouldn't wasn't on my top of my priorities.
Gotcha. So let's see. If I remember right, I think, what was the farthest place you went? So I'm Kansas, Nebraska. Did you make it down to Florida?
Um, no, I had an offer from Ave Maria down in Florida, but I had never had the opportunity to go um, visit down there. They didn't have engineering, so what I would be considering down there would have been marine biology. And I ended up getting on the phone and talking with a marine biology professor because I was like, "What is this?" Like, I had no idea. And the guy was talking about, and he was like, "What did he say?" Talking about how it was going to be studying birds, and I was thinking more of like a sea world. I'm going to go out there and play with dolphins every day and have that sort of thing. And then I ended up looking at the salary and saw it wasn't near as good as an engineer. And I said, it's probably not the best route for me at this time. And then also, also I went out to I went to Nebraska and
Yeah.
Wichita State for a camp and visited and got an offer from Dort out in Iowa.
Okay. So you got, yeah, I mean, I remember Nebraska. I was thinking that's pretty far away, but yeah, Florida, I remember that conversation. So, um, so let's backtrack. So freshman year, you start getting a little more serious with recruiting. You get something in mind for you that you're starting to think of like, this is what I like. So when did you and your family decide to consider like recruiting assistants? Was that kind of about the same time, or how did that come about?
I think we had like through some sort of a team. We had signed up through the NCSA program, and we were kind of getting like every week we'd have like a program view my profile or whatever, and we'd be like, oh, that's great, you know. And by the time of like sophomore year, it was kind of starting to be like, hey, we probably might need to be looking into this sort of thing because we have no idea what we're doing. Because the oldest child, we've never done this before,
Mhm.
and that's basically right around the time that we started. Um, and then the only other thing that we did recruiting wise is we got the very basic package of the NCSA, so I could see basically who was looking at me and
Right.
being able to reach out to them.
Right. Okay. And then so you did the NCSA, and then what brought you over to PrepStar? Was it just looking at something different, something more involved, or do you remember how that? I can't remember quite how we connected. I'm sure you got.
I know that I had talked to a local before you. I had talked to, oh, what's the program? It's a local one, NSR maybe.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Okay, I talked to the guy from there, and then maybe like a week or two later, I don't know if my dad reached out to you, or maybe it was that I fill out I might have got an email and I filled out like a questionnaire. Does that ring
Yeah.
any bells?
Yeah. That's usually how it happens. Yes.
I think that might have been it because that was the point in my recruiting process where I was like, I'm going to go out and every single minute of my free time during school, I'm going to fill out every questionnaire that I can. I don't care if I filled it out before, I'm filling out again.
I gotcha. So you
So
just
that's
figure like, okay, this thing is not really working for me, giving me what I want, or it wasn't quite what I expected. So you're you're looking for things out there to try to get your name out. And then so you had made that decision like about the same time as you got serious about playing college ball, and you basically fixed your position towards that direction and you start walking, right? You just did.
yeah.
Um, so let's talk about, fast forward, 2.5, 3 years. How, overall, how would you describe your experience? Like, was it a good experience overall?
Yeah, I would say it's a really good experience. You know, it was very interesting because um, obviously you see a lot of kids that um, either don't get a lot of interest or get huge interest, but I was kind of like the middleman where I got um, looks from every level, which was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have guys like I don't know, and like you'd be on their radar, but you weren't like a top priority. And then you'd have like the lower level schools where they're like texting you like every week and say, "How you doing? How you doing?" But it's definitely like really cool to see. And then the most surprising thing that I would say that I've saw throughout like all my visits and camps and everything is like the level of competition is not that different between a D1 and a D3 because I went to multiple practices at D3 and they had some dudes out there and that's what really surprised me when I went there because I'm like, man, is this going to look like a high school practice?
Right.
Um, just knowing the school and everything, and I'm like, I went there and like every kid is basically was the best or one of the better kids on their high school team. And if you think about it, it makes sense.
Right. Right. And I think well, let me ask this question then. Like, was was the criteria of a college being like academic focused first? Is that kind of what the common thread between you and some of your other teammates was? Um, that they were really looking for that academic fit, that academic component, as well as the baseball.
Are you talking about my teammates or
Yeah,
myself? Sorry.
you're up, like when you said you went to like some of the D3, or even now where you're going to go now. Like, do you think that's a common thread that a lot of the guys, even playing D3, are more focused on the academics than they are the baseball? Because that they're good dudes, they're good, they could go play at a D1, but maybe they didn't have that academic component that your school offers.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely saw some kids who were that way, and then I think it's a lot of it's you get a lot of kids who develop late, and with how recruiting is nowadays, I don't think they were like Big George over here is not 6'4", 220 at eighth grade or something like that. I think you got a lot of guys seem to develop a lot later because I'm looking just at Calvin. I can't remember the kid's name, but there was a kid that batted like 440 in the MIAA, and I mean you see a lot more with the transfer portal now. But yeah,
Right.
um, I think you have half of them that go for the academic side. You have a small portion where that's like the only offers they got, and then there's a lot of kids that just develop late and didn't really have an opportunity to get seen ever.
Right. I can understand that. Yeah. I mean, I think even you, like, I think I was your summer between your junior and senior year. I think you put on like 20 pounds. Is that right? Like
Yeah,
you got
I think
like
it was
substantially bigger.
yeah. Over COVID, I was like seventh grade, 5 foot. Like I was nothing. I was probably like one of the smallest kids. That's why I ended up quitting football was because I was 5 foot getting plowed by 6 foot linemen at
Right.
quarterback. And by like freshman, sophomore year, I mean, I was maybe like 5'6". Um, and then I hit a big growth spurt during COVID. I was like sleeping like 12 hours a day. So I hit a big growth spurt. And then I've just kind of been gradually growing. I mean, I was like 5'10" in either some point in my junior year. I think beginning of junior year, I was like 5'10", and now I'm 6 foot. But yeah, I've been definitely, um, especially this year, lifting a lot harder. And it's just so huge for the game. I mean, I'm hitting the ball like it was noticeable. I was it's really hard to explain, but like junior year, yeah, I was hitting home runs and I was hitting them off the wall, but I came out to practice senior year and I hit a ball and I was like, man, I hit that ball hard.
Yeah.
And I didn't even put a good I'm putting not to say bad swings on the ball, but I'm not putting like full swings on the ball. I mean, it's bouncing off the fence. And I was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
nice.
Right. It's like, oh yeah, developing the and yeah, developing your game and letting your game work for you. And then of course just physical development that I can remember as we updated the profile a couple of times, and you'd shoot me over some pictures and I'm like, man, Ryan looks like he's really filling out, man, like getting thicker legs and thicker upper body. Didn't hurt that you played soccer and swam and all that other stuff as other sports along the way. So I think those helped out a lot. But so like when you worked with me and our experience in general, like what did you like? What were some things that you found like really helpful or that you really liked um, about that experience of working, with me and through PrepStar?
I really like the ability to like talk with you after the visits because obviously we have mixed emotions after going to the visits and you having known people who have gone there or just knowing schools and coaches, just kind of the stereotype, being able to like kind of point us in the right direction. And I also liked the profile views because that's actually where Calvin found me is through the PrepStar profile, and he reached out.
Mhm.
Coach Van Dyne reached out with a call beginning of my junior year, and we've been in contact ever since.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I enjoyed those conversations too. Like you guys in the car, in the car driving through
Yeah,
the cornfields of Kansas, and you're like, here's how the visit went. It was always good to talk with you about that and talk to your dad. Your dad was awesome. We talked a lot. We talked there for a while. I bet every month. I bet we
I
talk
would bet. Yeah, I would bet so too.
at least once a month, sometimes more. I think honestly, between me and you and anybody watching this video now, but I think between he would be bored and he would just call me. I,
Yeah.
I think he'd be, for work purposes, be on the road. He'd be like, I'm gonna call Coach Mike. And we talk for half an hour, like, hey, what's going on? He'd just fill me in. Um, and then I can just talk. I think he was
Oh
just
yeah.
he's a very likable guy, and I appreciate that. And I have it was just some of those stuff. Sometimes I'm like, all right. So overall, 3 years. Did you find a good college fit? Like, do you feel like you comfortable where you're at? Do you feel like it's a good match for you?
For sure. Yeah. I really love I mean, the coaching staff's great. The baseball program, it's growing. I think we have like 14 new incoming freshmen. It was a really young team. They had like, I want to say 17 freshmen in this season and one game out of the tournament, which only 4 teams make the MIA tournament. So one game away, opportunities there. Engineering facilities were great. Um, I mean, yeah, I toured the first time I toured like just the workshop, and I was like, oh, this is all right. And then they took me the second time I went back for a practice. They took me down through all the labs and the different things. I'm like, wow. I mean, it was just room after room, and I was like, is there going to be more? And it just continued to be more and more equipment. And what was nice about it was at a lot of the bigger schools like D1s and stuff, you're not touching that equipment until junior, senior year, maybe even grad student. And here you're hands-on freshman year, you're doing all the work with this equipment. So that was
Nice,
also a nice plus.
nice. So if you could do maybe if there was anything you could do differently about your recruiting, um, what would that be?
The only thing I would do differently, I would say, is don't focus on the big power fives as much. Like if that's you, then go after them. But I think for me personally, I should have been um, making more connections with more local, smaller D1s or D2s, and all the rest. Because I feel like that's not that it's a waste of time, but for most people, that's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, especially nowadays with the transfer portal, almost all the guys with a lone exception are coming out of the transfer portals to those big schools.
Yeah, that's interesting. And like you said, I mean, you kind of had COVID during your high school experience. You experienced the ramifications of COVID season, which that plays a lot
Yeah.
of the transfer portal and stuff like that. What one other question, and I've already alluded to it. Actually, two questions, but you did play multiple sports in high school. You played soccer, like I said, you swam, um, you played baseball, and I think you are an Eagle Scout, right? So you did a lot of different
Yeah.
things. What do you think about being like if you tell a guy in high school going into high school, you know, do you think it's an advantage to be a multi-sport guy?
I think it is. I mean, you're well rounded. Sometimes I felt like it would have been nice to have either extra time to work on school or be able to work out specifically for the sport. But I feel like it's important not to get really burnt out of the sport, just baseball, 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 24/7, 365. I think it was really nice to be able to play other sports and really succeed at other sports. And it also like gives you new friends and just new people to hang out with. Um, and it helps you instead of just like going out into my backyard and sprinting on the grass until I'm tired. It was kind of nice to be able to go out in the soccer field and actually do something to work on my speed instead of just kind of just training in the backyard.
I got you. I think that's an interesting conversation that a lot of families need to have moving forward. I think it's important. And then, okay, last question, Ryan. 2.5, 3 years with me. Um, I think you're a great guy, and I think you're going to do really good things. If you could do it all again, go through the process the exact same way, getting help, um, you know, getting to the showcases and tournaments, would you do it all over again? Was it a pretty fun experience?
Yeah, it was definitely. I think in some aspects I might have liked the I-95 one that I did. I think I would have personally waited a year longer. I think I was at the point where I could showcase, but an extra year and a lot of exercise could have helped me a lot. And plus the fact that it didn't seem that they were talking to a lot of sophomores at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else was really great. Always going to the PBR showcases and updating the stats. And I had a blast down there at the Perfect Game Underclass one, the winter of my junior year. But yeah, I'd 100% do it over again. Yeah.
100% do it all over again. I think, like I said, I think for you it worked out. I feel like it worked out really well. I feel like
Yeah.
it's a good experience, and I had a blast working with you, and I really appreciate that you took some time. Still in the midst of playoffs and heading to graduation and all that in the next couple days. Took your final exams today, and yet you worked out a few minutes to sit down and talk to me, and I really appreciate that. So I wish you nothing but the best of luck, Ryan, and I think you're going to do really good things, man. So best of luck. Thanks for taking the time to interview with us.
Thank you for sure. Yeah, it's been a blast.
Awesome. I appreciate it.